In the year 1542, under the blazing sun of a market, a child was born who would grow to become one of the most powerful rulers the world has ever known. His name was Jalaluddin Muhammad, but history remembers him by a single word: Akbar. But Akbar's story is not one of easy power or effortless greatness. It begins with exile, fear, and blood. His father, Emperor Humayun, had lost the throne of Delhi to the formidable Sher Shah Suri. The mighty Mughal dynasty, founded by Babur, seemed shattered. And in those desperate years, Humayun wandered as a fugitive, running from desert to desert, seeking allies, food, even shelter. It was during this exile in a small Rajput fortress that Akbar was born. No courtly celebration, no grand palace, no throne waiting for him, just uncertainty. The infant who would one day rule over millions began life as a homeless prince. As Akbar grew, his father's fortunes remained unstable. Humayun eventually regained Delhi, but fate was cruel. In 1556, only a few years after reclaiming the throne, Humayun stumbled down the steep stairs of his library, dying in an instant. The Mughal Empire, fragile and fractured, suddenly had no emperor. And so, at the tender age of 13, Akbar, a boy with no formal education, no experience, no guidance, was declared Emperor of Hindustan. But his coronation was not the beginning of power. It was the beginning of survival. A teenage boy, wearing the crown of a dynasty on the verge of extinction. Enemies circled like wolves. The Afghans, the Rajputs, even his own nobles doubted that this child could lead. Every battle, every alliance, every night in the palace, it was a gamble with death. Behind the scenes, one man held the empire together: Bairam Khan, Akbar's regent and military commander. Fierce, ruthless and loyal, Bairam Khan fought for Akbar's throne with blood and steel. Together they faced the greatest test of their lives, the Second Battle of Panipat. In 1556, the Mughal forces met Hemu, a brilliant Hindu general who had seized Delhi and declared himself ruler. Hemu's army was vast, experienced and hungry for power. Akbar's men were outnumbered, outmatched and led by a boy. But destiny had chosen its side. During the battle, an arrow struck Hemu in the eye. Chaos spread through his army and the tide turned. The Mughals emerged victorious. The throne of Delhi for the second time belonged to the Mughals, and now to Akbar. But make no mistake, Akbar's throne was built not only on victory but on rivers of blood. After Panipat, Hemu was captured alive and brought before Akbar. His generals urged the young emperor to kill Hemu with his own hands, to mark his first act as ruler with an execution. Akbar hesitated. History is divided. Some say he refused to strike the fatal blow, letting his generals execute Hemu instead. Others whisper that he was persuaded to put the sword through Hemu's body himself, forever binding his youth with the shadow of death. Whichever is true, the boy emperor left Panipat not as a child, but as a ruler forged in war. Akbar's empire was far from secure. Rebels rose in every province. Rajput kings resisted Mughal dominance. Afghan chiefs plotted revenge. Even within his own court, loyalty was fragile. For the next decade, Akbar would ride across the subcontinent, putting down rebellion after rebellion, his life constantly at risk. And yet, beneath the bloodshed, something unusual began to stir. Unlike many conquerors, Akbar was not satisfied with fear alone. He wanted loyalty. Not just obedience but true unity. He saw that India was a land of many peoples, many faiths, many kingdoms. To rule it, he needed more than soldiers, he needed hearts. And so began the slow transformation of a warrior boy into a visionary emperor. He married Rajput princesses, not as trophies of war but as partners in his court. He elevated Hindu generals to positions of power. He abolished taxes that targeted non-Muslims. And in return, many Rajput kings laid down their swords and became his allies. This was not just politics, it was strategy. Akbar was building something greater than an empire of conquest. He was building an empire of faiths. But this vision would not come without shadows. In the vast halls of Fatehpur Sikri, Akbar began to question everything. Religion, tradition, even the Quran itself. Nothing was beyond his curiosity. Surrounded by scholars, mystics, and philosophers of every creed, Akbar asked the unthinkable. What if there was a new faith? One that could unite them all? This question would haunt the rest of his life. And from it would be born one of history's strangest, most controversial experiments. The mysterious Din-i-Ilahi. But that, my friends, is a story for another night. For now, remember this: Akbar the Great was not born in glory. He was born in exile. He did not inherit power. He he seized it from the jaws of death. And from the deserts of Amarkat to the blood-soaked fields of Panipat, a legend was rising, a legend that would one day change the destiny of an entire subcontinent. When Akbar secured his throne after Panipat, he did not inherit peace, he inherited chaos. Across the vast lands of Hindustan, countless kings still defied him. The throne in Delhi was a fragile prize, surrounded by enemies waiting to strike. And among those enemies, none were more formidable than the Rajputs. The Rajputs were warriors bound by honor, fire, and unyielding courage. They lived and died by the sword, never surrendering without a fight. To bring them under his banner would be Akbar's greatest challenge, and his greatest opportunity. At first, Akbar chose war. In 1568 he marched towards the great fortress of Chittorgarh, the heart of Muir, ruled by Rana Uday Singh. Chittorgarh was no ordinary citadel. Its walls rose like mountains, its gates were guarded by warriors who had sworn to fight to the last breath. Akbar laid siege to the fort with brutal determination. Cannons roared day and night, the ground shook with the thunder of iron, and the skies turned black with smoke. 4 months, the Rajputs held their ground, their resistance echoing like a roar against the heavens. But fate had already chosen its victor. Akbar's artillery tore through Chittorgarh's defenses. And when the walls finally crumbled, what followed was not victory, but a nightmare. The Rajputs, unwilling to submit, turned to their ancient code, Jauhar. Thousands of women, draped in red, walked into roaring flames rather than fall into the hands of the invader. The men, clad in saffron robes, charged into battle with death already embraced. The ground of Chittorgarh drank blood until it could drink no more. Akbar, standing amidst the smoke, declared victory. But history still asks, was it victory or was it massacre? Yet, in the aftermath of this carnage, Akbar made a choice that no emperor before him had dared. He realized that terror could break bodies, but it could not break spirits. If he was to rule Hindustan, he could not rely on blood alone. He needed loyalty. He needed trust. And so he extended his hand not as a conqueror but as an ally. Akbar began forging alliances through marriage. He took Rajput princesses into his harem, not as captives but as queens. Among them was Harka Bai, better known to history as Jodha Bai, the daughter of Raja Barmal of Amber. But this was no ordinary marriage. By honoring her status, by allowing her to practice her faith, by raising their son, Jahangir, as a symbol of Hindu-Muslim unity, Akbar created something revolutionary. Slowly, Rajput kings who had once raised their swords against the Mughals began to kneel not in defeat, but in partnership. They entered his court, commanded his armies, and shared his throne of power. This was the genius of Akbar. Where others saw enemies, he saw allies. Where others ruled through fear, he sought to rule through inclusion. But not all Rajputs would bend. In the hills of Muir, a new lion rose to challenge the emperor, Maharana Pratap. Fierce, proud, and unyielding, Pratap refused every offer of alliance, every gesture of peace. For him, the Mughals were foreign invaders and submission was worse than death. The clash between Akbar and Pratap would become one of the most legendary rivalries in Indian history. In 1576, their destinies collided at the Battle of Haldigati. The Mughal army, vast and disciplined, faced the Rajputs, outnumbered but burning with defiance. At the head of the Rajput charge was Maharana Pratap himself, mounted on his loyal horse Chetak, his spear aimed at the heart of the Mughal lines. The clash was thunderous. Blood painted the fields red, steel clashed with steel, and for a moment it seemed as if the Rajputs might break through. But numbers, strategy, and sheer power tilted the balance. The Mughals claimed victory. Yet Pratap survived, slipping into the hills to fight another day. 4 years he waged a guerrilla war, never surrendering, never bowing. In this, Akbar faced something new, a victory that felt like defeat. For though the empire expanded, Maharana Pratap's defiance lived on, immortalized as a symbol of resistance. These battles, these alliances, these rivers of blood, they were not just wars of conquest. They were the foundation of something larger. By the 1580s, Akbar's empire stretched from Kabul in the northwest to Bengal in the east, from the Himalayas in the north to the Deccan Plateau in the south. Never before had such vast lands been brought under one crown in Hindustan. But power is a double-edged sword. With each victory, Akbar grew more restless. With each conquest, his hunger shifted from land to something more intangible, truth itself. He had conquered kingdoms. Now he sought to conquer hearts, minds, and even faith. In the palaces of Fatehpur Sikri, Akbar summoned scholars, saints, and philosophers from every corner of the world. Muslims, Hindus, Jains, Christians, Zoroastrians, all debated under his gaze. And from these debates, a question burned brighter every day: could there be a new path? A faith above all faiths? A vision that united an empire of 1,000 gods into one? The answer would give birth to the most mysterious, controversial, and dangerous idea of his reign: the idea of Din-i-Ilahi. By the late 16th century, Akbar was no longer just a conqueror. He was the undisputed master of Hindustan. But for the emperor who had bent kingdoms to his will, conquest of land was not enough. He now craved something far more dangerous: conquest of the mind. And so, within the sandstone walls of Fatehpur Sikri, Akbar built a world unlike anything seen before. Here, in his magnificent palace, the emperor gathered the finest jewels of intellect and talent. They were called the Navratnas, the 9 gems. Among them was Abul Fazl, his brilliant chronicler, whose words shaped the emperor's legacy; Faizi, the poet, whose verses captured the soul of Akbar's vision; Birbal, the witty courtier, whose cleverness became legend; Raja Todar Mal, the finance minister, who crafted a system of taxation so advanced it would last for centuries; Tansin, the musician, whose ragas could make even animals weep and lamps ignite with fire. Together they were not merely advisors, they were architects of an empire of ideas. But Akbar's hunger was insatiable. He began inviting not only poets and ministers, but theologians, priests, and philosophers. Muslim clerics, Hindu pundits, Jain monks, Christian missionaries, and even Zoroastrian priests sat in his court, debating faith and philosophy. The chamber where these debates raged was called the Ibadat Khana, the house of worship. Night after night, the Ibadat Khana echoed with the clash of words. The clerics fought to prove their truth supreme. They hurled arguments like swords, each seeking to cut down the other's belief. But Akbar sat silently watching. And slowly the emperor began to wonder. If every faith claimed to be true, then what was truth itself? From these fiery debates, a radical thought took shape in Akbar's mind. What if there was a new path? A faith beyond Islam, beyond Hinduism, beyond Christianity? A faith that united all, not in separation but in harmony? This was the seed of Din-i-Ilahi, the religion of God. Din-i-Ilahi was not like other religions. It had no holy book, no sacred rituals, no priesthood. Instead, it was a philosophy, a code of life. Its principles were loyalty to the emperor, purity of the soul, kindness, charity, and above all, tolerance. It drew from Sufi mysticism, Hindu bhakti, Jain nonviolence, and Christian humility. Akbar declared himself the spiritual guide, not a prophet but a seeker of truth. But while some were drawn to his vision, others whispered in fear. For the orthodox clergy, Din-i-Ilahi was blasphemy. How could an emperor dare to create a new faith? How could he place himself above the ulama, the guardians of religion? To them, Akbar was no longer the protector of Islam, he was its betrayer. Rebellion stirred in shadows. Fatwas were declared. Enemies sharpened their daggers, believing the emperor had turned against God himself. Yet Akbar stood firm. He abolished the jizya tax on non-Muslims. He welcomed Hindus, Jains, Parsis, and Christians into his court. He even banned practices like child marriage and animal slaughter on certain days, respecting the beliefs of others. The emperor was not just ruling Hindustan. He was reimagining it. But such visions come at a price. For every admirer who called him Akbar the Great, there were whispers in the dark that called him heretic. Din-i-Ilahi never spread widely. Few dared to join it openly. Yet its spirit, the dream of unity, the defiance of orthodoxy, became the most daring chapter of Akbar's life. But dreams, no matter how grand, could not silence the storm brewing in his own bloodline. For even as Akbar shaped an empire of ideas, shadows were rising. Shadows within his family. The next great battle would not come from the Rajputs or the Afghans. It would come from his own son. For decades, Akbar had bent kingdoms to his will. Rajput kings, Afghan rebels, even the mighty Gujaratis had bowed before his empire. But the greatest enemy Akbar would ever face was not an army. It was his own flesh and blood. Prince Salim, the heir to the throne. To the people, he was Jahangir, the Caesar of the world. But to Akbar he was a son, restless, ambitious, and dangerously impatient. From the moment Salim grew into manhood, he hungered for the throne. While Akbar was building visions of philosophy and empire, Salim whispered in secret chambers, building an army of his own. In 1599, as Akbar waged war in the Deccan, word reached him that chilled his heart. His son, the prince, had rebelled. Salim declared himself emperor. He minted coins in his own name. He commanded soldiers to fight under his banner. The empire trembled. Was this the end of Akbar the Great, brought down not by invaders but by the son he had raised? Akbar returned to Agra in fury. Father and son faced each other not across a dining table, but across a battlefield of politics and betrayal. Yet blood is a strange chain. Akbar hesitated to strike Selim down completely. Again and again the emperor forgave him, even as the prince defied him. But behind Selim's rebellion lay another shadow, the shadow of love. The prince was consumed by passion for one woman, Anarkali, a courtesan of unmatched beauty, whose grace and charm ensnared the heart of Jahangir. But court whispers reached Akbar's ears. Anarkali's presence was pulling his son deeper into defiance. Legends say Akbar, fearing the downfall of his dynasty, ordered Anarkali to be entombed alive. Her cries silenced beneath stone, her love buried forever. Whether myth or truth, the tale of Anarkali became immortal. But for Akbar the real wound was not the courtesan, it was Selim himself. Each day the emperor grew older, his body weaker. Each day Selim grew bolder, his eyes fixed on the peacock throne. In those final years the house of Timur was torn apart by ambition. Selim fought not only his father's will but also his own brothers and rivals. Akbar's dream of harmony clashed with Selim's hunger for power. And yet, despite it all, Akbar could not bring himself to destroy his son. The emperor who had crushed entire kingdoms was powerless before the bonds of blood. The empire stood on the edge of uncertainty. Would Akbar's vision of unity survive? Or would Selim, the impatient heir, undo everything? The world watched as the twilight of Akbar's reign darkened. And as the emperor's final days approached, one question haunted Hindustan. Would the son prove worthy of the father's throne? Or would the Mughal dynasty itself collapse into ruin? The empire Akbar had built stretched from the Hindu Kush mountains to the Bay of Bengal. Palaces glittered, armies thundered, scholars debated in marble halls. And yet, in his final years, Akbar the Great was a man surrounded not by peace, but by shadows. The wounds of betrayal never healed. His son Selim, restless, defiant, hungry for the throne, had tested the emperor's patience again and again. And though Akbar forgave him, the bond between father and son was scarred forever. As age crept into his bones, Akbar often gazed into the distance of Fatehpur Sikri, the city he had once built as his dream capital. It stood silent, almost abandoned, like a ghost of his ideals. In those twilight years, whispers spread across the court. Had Akbar's grand experiment failed? The Din-i-Ilahi, his bold vision to unite faiths, had not taken root. Many mocked it. Some called it blasphemy. And when Akbar looked into the eyes of his nobles, he saw not conviction, but doubt. The emperor who had once seemed invincible now felt the weight of time and disappointment pressing upon his shoulders. But even in decline, Akbar remained a ruler of immense strength. In 1602, when whispers of Selim's treachery grew too loud to ignore, Akbar ordered the execution of Abul Fazl, his most trusted advisor, slain at the command of his own son. The empire shook. If Selim could dare to kill his father's closest ally, what would stop him from claiming the peacock throne by force? By 1605, Akbar's health began to crumble. Fevers racked his body, and the once tireless emperor was confined to chambers of pain. Yet even as he lay dying, intrigue and betrayal filled the corridors of Agra fort. Nobles whispered. Factions formed. Who would inherit the empire? Would it be Selim, the rebellious son? Or would another prince seize the crown? On October 27, 1605, the voice of Akbar was silenced forever. The man who had ruled Hindustan for nearly 50 years. The boy who had marched barefoot through deserts. The emperor who had faced down Rajput warriors. The dreamer who had tried to unite faiths. Was gone. He was buried in Sikandra, his tomb standing as a monument to both his glory and his mysteries. But death did not end his story. It began his legend. For centuries people would argue. Was Akbar a tyrant who crushed kingdoms with blood and fire? Or was he a visionary who saw beyond religion, beyond race, beyond time? Was the Din-i-Ilahi madness? Or was it genius centuries ahead of its age? The truth of Akbar lies not in marble tombs or dusty manuscripts. It lies in the empire he left behind, an empire that became the foundation of India's golden age. The rebel prince, Selim, ascended the throne as Emperor Jahangir. But even as he wore the crown, the shadow of his father loomed over him. For Jahangir may have been king, but the world would remember only Akbar as the Great. And so ends the tale of Akbar, conqueror, philosopher, tyrant, dreamer. A man who tried to shape the world. and in the end was shaped by it.